RealAgriculture.com presents Under the Microscope with BioVision Seed Labs.
All right, we're here with Holly Gelich, Business Development Manager with BioVision. Welcome here, Holly.
Good afternoon. How are you today, Lindsay?
I'm doing well. All right, so this is episode 5 of Under the Microscope. We're going to talk about maybe some specialized or advanced seed testing that your lab does and when a farmer may want some of those tests done. So let's tackle off the top varietal testing. So what kind of farmer or what kind of company might need varietal testing done?
Varietal testing is done by a whole scope of different people in the marketplace in Western Canada. Now, I would say the majority of the testing that happens in Western Canada is from grain companies, but there are also farmers that do have the need for varietal identification in certain situations. So examples of those situations would be is if they're a little unsure about what is in their bin. Not necessarily that they didn't know what they seeded, but more so they may have had help on the farm and was unsure about the binning process at harvest. We all know harvest gets a little bit crazy, and so if the farmer is unsure of what is in his bin, it's a great way to get an idea for it. Now, the barley industry, we'll talk about that first. The malt barley industry uses it in two different cases. The first one is really a varietal confirmation of what is being delivered to their plant is what is being declared. I don't believe that's happening on every single load, but if there is just a quality assurance system that they have in place. The second situation that the malt industry also conducts testing is the out market. Now, on their export sales, they need to meet a certain level of varietal composition in their samples. Okay. So companies like ourselves will then do the analysis to see what is the composition of that variety. Now, the wheat industry is somewhat different from the barley industry. Again, from the exports, they're not really concerned that it is a specific variety. They are more concerned that there's not a deregistered variety or a variety that may have come into Canada from the U.S. and is not registered in Canada for sale. So they are really looking at something totally different than the malt industry. Now, in regards to shipments in Western Canada from deliveries and terminals, there is some quality assurance that is conducted in-house as well.
Yeah. So on the variety identification side, if farmers are looking for, or a company is looking for on the wheat side, varietal identification, is there more than one way or more than one test that tells you different things?
Absolutely. BioVision has been testing for varietal identification for close to 10 years now, and our native system of testing is a really technique based off of protein analysis, using for wheat two different forms of electrophoresis, and for barley a form of high-performance liquid chromatography. Now, those have been an excellent way in the past to identify the varieties in the sample. Now, both of those tests have been around for many, many, many years, but we are starting to see that the discriminatory power is more classified as medium as new technologies have come forward. So what has come forward in the past few years is DNA analysis, and that's getting right down to the alleles, or as some people may refer to as base pair sequencing. So this is very, very precise. The disadvantage of it is that it is more expensive. So when producers are looking at varietal identification, the best thing to do is to contact our lab, and we can get them into the direction that we feel will cover what they're looking for, whether it is one of the heritage systems, which is a little less expensive, but it may have some areas that it's not very precise in specific groupings of varieties, or go the DNA route, which is extremely precise, but can be a little bit more expensive.
Perfect. Okay. Now to switch gears a little bit, let's talk about, now we've talked obviously in previous episodes about disease levels, those sorts of things. There is a correlation between fusarium damaged kernels, fusarium in wheat, with vomitoxin levels. However, it's not necessarily a one-to-one kind of ratio, right? So if you know you've got fusarium in your grain, that doesn't necessarily give you an indication of the vomitoxin levels, correct?
Absolutely. Now, vomitoxin can be produced not only from kernels that show the FDK symptoms, but also kernels that may not, in fact, show those symptoms quite yet. So the process that we utilize in-house is an ELISA test kit. Now, these kits are manufactured in the United States. We bring them in, and we conduct a bulk grind of the sample and utilize the kit to benchmark what is your parts per million in your sample. So it is a very interesting test, in that most of the tests that happen in seed laboratories are either growth-based or they're looking physically at the kernels. This is totally different in that it's an antibody reaction that we are measuring, and then an instrument then takes that reaction and converts it to a parts per million results.
Right. And there's certainly some discussion, I know, that different strains, let's say, of fusarium cause different levels of vomitoxin, those sorts of things. So certainly it's not easy to say you have this many fusarium damaged kernels, this is the level of vomitoxin you'll have. So certainly if you've got some of that, this gives the farmer just that extra level of information when they're marketing, or a feed mill could then take that and use it in their feed blends.
Absolutely, and what we've seen in the marketplace is that in the past there's been one chemotype that has been predominant, and it wasn't necessarily that aggressive, but there is a newer strain that has become more aggressive and does produce more vomitoxin in its spores. So it is something that you can't look at your grain and say, yes, there's lots of vomitoxin, or no, there isn't. Yeah. It has to be measured.
Okay. Now, certainly not that long ago, although we'd like to kind of forget about it, was the CDC Trifid genetically modified admixing, or whatever we want to call it. Is that still an issue? Is there still testing going on in the flax industry for that? I mean, I think that's part of the protocol, is that there's still a lot of testing going on. So is that still a concern for those that may have flax on their farm or may plan to grow it next year?
Yes, the Flax Council of Canada is still recommending the analysis of samples, whether it's farm-safe seed, grain destined to commercial market, or pedigreed seed. So the testing is continuing to going on. The techniques that the approved laboratories are using is a European Commission non-spec protocol, which is a PCR type protocol. And one thing that is new going this year is that producers sending in samples, or seed growers sending in samples, are now to be declaring the crop year is produced. Okay. And this is going to be used as a benchmark by the Flax Council and end users to see where we have gone from the point a few years ago to where we are now. Okay. And from our standpoint in testing, we're heading into our fourth season of testing. Yeah. We are seeing very little detection of the GMO event. So this is a really good story on how the industry has come together and has come up with a remedy plan, and it has really worked.
That's wonderful. That's some good news.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Holly. It's always good to get a good picture of kind of what's going on and what other test farmers might be interested in. So thank you again.
Thank you.